I've been making records for about 7 years now, and I've experienced many different versions of the SSL bus compressor. Today, I thought it would be fun to shoot out the analog hardware version versus the plugin to see if we could hear a difference. I've discovered that there's actually a plugin that responds a lot like the hardware version. And the last thing I want to talk about is something that allowed me to start getting a lot more out of my mixes. And this is something that you need to know if you're somebody that aspires to own some analog hardware one day. So today we're looking at some isolated drums from a single that I produced that's part of a larger record that'll come out in November. Now I'm gonna put the band's social and their Spotify pre-save link for their album in the description, just as a way to say thanks for letting us use their isolated drums in today's example. It's really important and so beneficial to be looking at real world examples. So let's listen to these drums. Again, I just pulled them right off the mix, and this is what they would sound like if you were in the mix and you isolated them. Yeah, let's begin our blind test. Close your eyes, no peeking, take out a notepad, and let me know down in the comments below which one you prefer. Let's start with what I'm calling option A. And in today's example, I'm using these compressors as I would use them professionally, right? I don't want to do anything overly exaggerated, like slam them, because I wouldn't slam a drum bus. You know, I might slam it if it was parallel, but that's not what we're doing. So just keep that in mind. This is definitely going to be a pretty tough blind shootout. All right, option B. And I'm actually going to throw a curveball into our blind test, and I want us to compare a third option. And let me know what you think. They all sound great, and I want you to let me know down in the comments which one you prefer best. And if you want to take a guess, let me know which one you think is the analog hardware. And don't be afraid to take a guess. Just because it's analog or not doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just a different way of working to achieve the same goal. Now I'm going to show you which one was which, and you may not expect the one that sounds the most like the analog hardware. Let's check it out. And so that leaves the question, which one of these is most like the hardware if that's the goal we're going for? In my experience, I actually really like the Universal Audio Bus Compressor plugin because when I use it, it feels very familiar when compared to my hardware unit. And the last thing I want to talk about is something that allowed me to start getting a lot more out of my mixes. The workflow of working with analog hardware is quite different from working with a plugin, and this is something that you need to know if you're somebody that aspires to own some analog hardware one day. We're so used to, dialing in a plugin, closing a session, opening up another one, and not even thinking about it. But if you're using analog hardware, this needs to be recalled every session. And I would just take photos on my phone and keep them in my camera roll and use that to recall settings. But it really wasn't that efficient. And I found myself over time using my hardware less and less. Well, a very easy way to recall your settings for your hardware without having to look through your camera roll is to just open up an instance of the plugin and copy the settings you have on the hardware to the plugin. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to sound the same. All plugins react differently, but what it does mean is that you have basically a recall sheet that's held within your session. So then what I would do is I would make the plugin version inactive, and I like to put it right above my hardware insert. So that way, when I open up a session, I can just make this active. I can see the settings that I had on my hardware. I can recall it, and it's all stored neatly within the session that it pertains to, and it's not going to get lost somewhere in your camera roll. I hope that this simple tip can also encourage somebody else who maybe has a lot of hardware to just start using it more and to have a little bit more fun. Thank you for tuning in to another video, and if you want to support our channel, I've got a bunch of links in the description of this video. I'll catch you on the next one.